it's always a little bit frustrating to me when people have a negative relationship with failure. Failure is a massive part of being able to be successful. You have to get comfortable with failure. You have to actually seek failure. Failure is where all of the lessons are. You know, when you go to the gym and you work out, you're actually seeking failure. You want to take your muscles to the point where you get to failure, because that's where the adaptation is. That's where growth is. Successful people fail a lot. They fail a whole lot more than they succeed, but they extract the lessons from the failure and they use that, the energy, and they use the wisdom to come around to the next phase of success. You gotta take a shot. You have to live at the edge of your capabilities. You gotta live where you're almost certain you're going to fail. That's the reason for practice. Practice is controlled failure. You're getting to your limit, getting to your limit, getting to your limit. You can't lift that. You can't do that. Until you get to the point that all of a sudden your body makes the adjustment and then you can do it. Failure actually helps you to recognize the areas where you need to evolve. So fail early, fail often, fail forward.
And I don't understand why I'm different from all the other kids. A lot of people don't know that I had a brain injury when I was a child. One day at school, somebody says, "Hey, look at all the fire engines outside." And most of the kids in the class never saw a fire engine, and firefighters are like my heroes. I want to see it. I take my chair and I carry it to the windowsill. I put it down here and I climb on it, and I can just kind of see the outline of it. And I see the firefighters and I'm on my bliss. And just when I had that highest moment, one of the other kids is grabbing my chair. And I go back to turn like this to see who's doing it, and I fall head first right into the radiator, and I was bleeding, everywhere. There was a pool of blood. And my parents, the way they describe it, it was very traumatic. They said that I was never the same, and especially when it came to learning. I mean, I became painfully shy, I wasn't myself, and where it really showed up was in school, because I didn't understand things very well. And teachers would have to repeat themselves over and over and over. I became so introverted and not talking to anybody. And the big thing was also I couldn't read. I would just look at pages and I just see letters and they didn't mean anything to me. We would get in circles and the teacher would give a book out, and one by one you would have to read out loud to the other students. And my heart's beating out of my chest right now even thinking of it, because every time somebody finished, it would get closer, the book would get closer and closer and closer to me. And I would just, because I couldn't read. And then when the book got to me, I just didn't know what to do. And I would just stare at it and I would just start crying. The teacher would come and take the book and then pass it on to the next person. And I remember my teacher pointing to me, talking to another adult, saying, "That's the boy with the broken brain." And I always thought, it really pushed something deep inside of me, saying that I'm not enough. There's something that was wrong with me, that I wasn't like everybody else, that I couldn't be like them. And it took me actually an extra 3 years to learn how to read. I taught myself by reading comic books when my parents thought I was sleeping. I would be under the covers with my flashlight every night looking at the pictures. My favorite comic books growing up were the X-Men. Not because they were the strongest or the fastest, it's just they didn't fit in because they were mutants, and they were bullied like I was bullied, and they were pushed aside and told that they weren't worth anything. It was a metaphor for me of like what people were capable of and what humans are, their potential is. At night, when I was doing my nighttime reading, I found out that School of the Gifted, Professor X's school for the superheroes, was in Westchester, New York. And that's where I grew up, in the suburbs of New York City. The next day, I got on my bicycle and I started riding around my neighborhood trying to find the school for the X-Men. And I did that consecutively every single weekend. That's what I did. It brought the words to life, and I learned what reading was for me. And so I remember, though, we had a parent-teacher conference where my parents came in. I had one chance to really succeed, and it was this book report. They were willing to make this like my book report, to count it more because I was not doing well. And we decided on a topic, and that topic was on Leonardo Da Vinci. She thought that it would be interesting, for me to study. to learn about, this genius. They say that he had like dyslexia and he had some learning challenges. And I had this heart-to-heart talk with my parents saying, I know I haven't measured up to this point, but I'm gonna make you proud. And I picked up every single book on Leonardo Da Vinci. I mean, I just dreamt about Leonardo, and at breakfast I would read about Leonardo, and everything was about this person. This was like where the spotlight is on you and you have to be able to perform, and this is gonna decide if I was something. And that it was more than a book report. And when we get there in class, the teacher said, okay, Jim, I want you to give a presentation in front of the class about it. And my life just, right now, my world just crumbled. Because growing up with learning difficulties, I was painfully shy, because it was like going back to that reading circle again, where I had to talk in front of a group of people, because up to that point, I never did that. And so I looked her right in the eyes, because my heart was beating on my chest, I was sweating so much. And I said, I didn't do the book report, and I basically lied. She just took me for my word, and I got a 0. While I had in my backpack, like bound, this book report, which signified all my dreams, my potential there. I remember to this day walking up, out of the classroom, and there's a trash can right there, and I threw the book report in there. And along with that, everything in terms of my hopes and my abilities, my pride, my promises, it just felt like it just went in the trash. And I still look back with, regret and sorrow that I didn't step up to be able to do that. But I was a product at that moment of my conditioning. I was believing my self-talk that I wasn't enough. Your brain is the supercomputer, and your self-talk is the program it will run. So you have to be very mindful of your thoughts. And so when you grow up with these challenges and you're the boy with the broken brain, you suffer and struggle and you wonder why. At the age of 18, I wanted to run away. I didn't know how to tell my parents how I was going to quit school. And I remember at that time, my friend said, hey, why don't you come with me over the weekend? I'm gonna go visit my family, get some space, get some perspective. And I go to California, and I remember like it was yesterday, the father is walking me around his property and asked me a very innocent question, a question you would ask an 18-year-old kid, but it was the worst question on earth to ask me. How's school? I break down, and I just collapse, and I just start crying to this complete stranger because of all the pressure that I'm holding in. And I tell him my whole story about growing up with learning challenges and difficulties and my brain injury, and I'm gonna disappoint my parents and be a bad role model to my younger brother and my younger sister. And he looked at me and he asked me a question. It's, Jim, why are you in school? What do you wanna be? What do you wanna do? What do you wanna have? What do you wanna share with the world? I didn't have any answers because I'd never asked myself that question before. And he pulls out a journal out of his back pocket, and he takes out a couple of sheets of paper, tears them out, and hands them to me with a pen, and he makes me write down my answers. And he looks at me and he says, Jim, you are this close to everything on that list. And he spreads his index fingers about a foot apart. And I'm thinking, there's no way. Give me 10 lifetimes, I'm not gonna crack that list. And he takes his index fingers and he puts them to the side of my head. And between that, obviously is my brain, meaning that's the bridge to everything that I need in life. That's the key to unlock this, to unlock my dream life. And so fast forward, I'm back at school and I'm sitting at my desk and I have a pile of books that I have to read for school and a pile of books that I committed to that I want to read. So what do? I don't eat, I don't sleep, I don't work out, I don't do anything. I don't spend time with friends. I just live in the library. After a while, I end up passing out one night in the library. I fall down a flight of stairs again. I hit my head again, and I wake up in the hospital 2 days later, and I have wasted away. I'm down to 117 pounds. I thought I died. I mean, it was the darkest time in my life because I felt like, what's my value on this planet? But when I woke up in that hospital bed, another part of me woke up saying there has to be a way of fixing this. And as soon as I had that thought, the universe responded. The nurse came in with a mug of tea, and on that mug of tea was a picture of a genius, Albert Einstein, and it had a quote, "The same level of thinking that's created your problem will not solve your problem." And it made me ask another question again. What's my problem? And I said, my problem is I have a very slow brain. I'm a very slow learner. Maybe I could learn how to learn faster. And I was like, okay, where do I go to learn? And I thought, oh, school. And I started looking through all the classes, and I started reading every single one. And I realized all these classes are on what to learn, but there were 0 classes on how to learn. How does my brain work so I could work my brain? How does my memory work so I could work my memory? And I made that my study. And that was my aha moment. A light switch just went on, and I started to understand things for the very first time. I started to have better focus. I started to read faster, and I wasn't getting distracted all of a sudden. I mean, I started to make friends. I started to be more confident and being more happy and having more joy and enjoying myself. And I remember when I had that epiphany, I couldn't help but help other people, because why did I have to suffer and struggle, go through all this difficulty when I could have been taught these easy to learn techniques about how my mind worked, how memory worked? And so I wanted to start helping everybody. That's been my quest for the past 25 years. And I remember recently, I remembered somebody's name in an audience, and that person referred me to the chairman of 20th Century Fox. And I get a call from their office saying, hey, I heard about your work. I want you to please come in and spend a half a day with our executive team. And I go there on a Friday morning, and I give one of the best trainings I've ever done. When I'm done, the chairman of 20th Century Fox comes to me and says, Jim, this was incredible, one of the very best trainings we've ever offered. And I see a movie poster of Wolverine. And it was for a movie, it wasn't coming out for a few months. And I was like, wow, I can't wait to see that film. And the chairman comes to me and says, Jim, I didn't know you like superheroes. Like, we have another 30 days of filming the new X-Men movie in Montreal. How would you like to go there and be there and just experience it? And I was like, that's incredible. I've never been on a movie set before. And so he picks me up the next morning, Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. We get on the plane. They call it the X-Jet. Waiting on the plane for me is the entire cast of X-Men. I see Wolverine and Professor X, and I'm sitting between Jennifer Lawrence and Halle Berry, and I get to share some of my brain tips and speed reading and memory tips to these amazing superheroes. And when we get to Montreal, the very first scene took place in Charles Xavier's superhero school. And I'm still this 9-year-old boy, and I'm looking at this school, the place I've always dreamed, that I've always searched and seeked for. And I got to see my superheroes come to life right in front of me. When I go home after that, there's a package waiting for me. And it's the size of maybe a television. And I open it up, and it's this photograph of me and the entire cast of X-Men. There's a note in there from the chairman of Fox. And it says, Jim, thank you so much for sharing your superpowers with all of us. I know you've been looking for your superhero school ever since you were a child. Here's your class photo. What I've learned is this. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not that smart, or how smart am I, or how smart are my kids? They're asking the wrong question. It's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. A superhero for me is somebody who is on the path of discovering and developing their superpowers, like their strengths, their unique ability, their unique talents. And I feel like the world needs more superheroes, and the world deserves more of us to be able to show up, that there's a superhero version of all of us. Find your superpower.
He knocked my mom out on the top of the stairs. I could see him coming down the stairs, just dragging her. And she was kind of lifeless. And that's when I got off the couch, scared to death, jumped up my father, and he beat the shit out of me. We never went to school hardly at all because we were bruised up. He also believed in just us working the family business. So going to school really didn't happen for me at all. Not only did he take a backseat, I also had a learning disability. I'll never forget in 3rd grade, there was this teacher that was extremely rough on me. And at this time in my life, I did not need this. And she believed I needed to be in a special school because of my learning disability. And this is where I was talking about, people always talk about manage your expectations. This teacher managed my expectations. She saw I had a learning disability. She saw I was socially unable to survive in this world. She saw I was messed up. So she managed my expectations. She said, we need to put David Goggins in a special school. I came from hell. And when you come from hell not knowing how to fight, this is what happens to you. What happens to you is you become a fucked up kid that cannot survive in society. I'll never forget one time during a basketball game, there was this coach, Mr. Trout. He knew me when I was a kid in that school when I was in 3rd grade getting set back. Mr. Trout always loved me. This white man loved the shit out of me. I don't know why he did. But he was my JV basketball coach my sophomore year. The visiting team was at our home stadium. It was at the end of the game, and the visiting team started chanting. I was the only black person in the whole daggone stadium. They started chanting, nigger, nigger, nigger. That's all I remember. At that time in my life, that's all I remember. But now at 42 years old, I can look back on that time with clear eyes and a clear mind and see what Mr. Trout did for me. He went in that locker room where I was crying and upset, and he cried with me. This white man cried with me, but at that time in my life, I didn't see that. All I saw was red. I saw hate. This whole town hated me. Everybody's against me. My mind lost it. And for some reason, I couldn't sleep on my bed. Until this day, I don't know why the floor felt so comfortable. And at 22, 21 years old, I went from 175 pounds to 297 pounds. Fat, out of shape, insecure. I was everything everybody said I was going to be. That's what I was. And it makes you feel like shit. So I got a job spraying for cockroaches at nighttime. Not saying it's a bad job, but I didn't want to do it. So for about 6 months, I went around to your local eatery spraying for cockroaches. This one night I came home, the first thing I do, I walk in my living room, turn the TV on. First thing I do, and then walk back to take a shower. And I would listen to the TV as I was trying to take a shower. This day changed my life. It held me accountable for what I wasn't facing in life. They're going through Navy SEAL training. And I sat down. I came out of the shower and I sat down. Something brought me back to sit down and watch these guys go through hell. I saw a ton of them quitting, ringing the bell. Ringing the bell means you quit Navy SEAL training. I saw them putting their helmet down. This went on through the whole show. And it finally got to the very end. There was about 15 to 20 guys at the very end. And this one statement changed my life. They were all sitting there in their dress whites. And this CO, this commanding officer, stands up in front of these men. And he looked sharp, and I could tell he stood for something. And he said, we live in a world where mediocrity is often rewarded. These men up here detest mediocrity. When you hear a statement like that, it forces you to think about yourself. I wasn't even fucking mediocre. I wasn't anything. I was at the bottom of the barrel of life. I chose the 4-lane highway for my life, the easy route, the route that has gas stations, the route that has fucking signs that say 20 miles to the next service stop. All this shit. I chose that route. Most of us choose the 4-lane highway. When I was born, there was also a shovel over here in the fucking corner. No one wants to go to the shovel. They want to choose the 4-lane fucking highway. That's the nice route. The shovel means you're gonna fucking hurt. The shovel means you're gonna suffer. The shovel means you're gonna hit rock a lot of time. And we all know what digging through rock is like. When you hit a fucking root, you gotta fucking get some more tools out. If I had no more tools, just a fucking shovel. I was choosing the 4-lane highway. This is when I decided to pick up that fucking shovel that we all decide not to take. I had to make a change in my life. So I said, you know what? I have to join the military. I went on a Navy SEAL training. Became the only person I believe in history to go through 3 Navy SEAL Hell Weeks in 1 year. I completed 2 of them. Hell Week is 130 hours of continuous training. You might get 2 hours of sleep. The first few weeks get you ready for this hard 1 week of training. I had to become obsessed. No matter what was in front of me, I had to figure out a way to overcome it. So when things hit you in life that you're afraid of or you're not good at, the first thing you're going to say to yourself is, why am I here anyway? This isn't for me. The water's too cold. The sun's too hot. I'm getting up too early. Why am I doing this to myself? That's what the normal mind says. I had to start training my mind to think about, how the fuck can I get through this? Not giving myself a way out. Never giving myself, creating a wall around all the fucking ways out in my mind. I had to slowly start to build this fucking wall so my mind knew this motherfucker is not going to give himself a way out of here. In my first Hell Week, I had a huge setback. I was broken. My legs were broken. I had double pneumonia. I got rolled back to day 1, week 1 of Navy SEAL training. I got through that second Hell Week. During the second hell week, I actually broke my knee. I continued to limp around for a couple weeks. I couldn't make it anymore. Got rolled back to day one, week one. I'll never forget standing there in front of Captain Bowen. He was the CEO in charge of Navy SEAL training at the time. And he had no mercy on anybody. If he believed in managing your expectations, I wouldn't be here today. He challenged me again. I was challenged my whole life, not by the mindset of managing expectations, by exceeding expectations, not by managing them. I'm standing there with crutches. I'm sitting in his office. He looks at me, he goes, Goggins, this is your last time. We're gonna put you through Navy SEAL training. This will be your third hell week in 1 year. We're not gonna put you through a fourth. So this is your last time. I'm sitting thinking, how am I gonna get through this? I'm badly jacked up. My legs are broken. My knee is messed up. And he goes, you have a couple of months to get better. A couple of months isn't gonna do it. I won't get healed up in a couple of months. But I realized I'm gonna get through this shit. I'm gonna find a way to get through it because why? I put barriers in my mind. So my third hell week, I went in there with pretty much, I would put a black sock on first. I would get duct tape. And I duct taped my ankles all the way up to my calf every single morning. And then I put another black sock over it. And what that did, that prevented me from moving my ankle. So I didn't really, I wasn't flexing my shin as much. And I started running with just my hip flexors. In this hell week, it was a bad hell week. We had a guy die on Thursday morning of hell week. I went on to become a Navy SEAL. Greatness is not something that you meet once. It's something that you meet thousands of fucking times in your life. And you don't reach it if you're not constantly in constant fucking pursuit of fucking greatness. So if my mind were to say right now, I'm great, I just lost. We're gonna grow. We're not gonna triple down on our strengths. We're not gonna do that crap. We're gonna work on our weaknesses so we grow. We need friction to do that. Without friction, there's no growth. Without friction, there's confusion. Confusion is, David Goggins, how did you become who you are today? I put a bunch of fucking friction in my life. And I grew. That's how I did it. You know how you get mentally tough? It's a lifestyle. Instead of hitting that fucking snooze button in the fucking morning and not making your bed, not cleaning your house, you don't hit the snooze button. You get up. You don't want to go run, you go run. You don't want to go swim, you go swim. You don't want to make your bed, you make your bed. You don't want to clean your house, you clean your house. You don't want to study, you fucking study. That's how you start to callous your mind. So that became my life. If you say you're going to wake up at 4 o'clock in the fucking morning to go run, wake up at 4 o'clock it's going to suck. It's not going to be fun. Do something that sucks every single day of your life. That's how you grow. Embrace the suck.
I was 18 years old when I got married. I belonged to a very conservative family, a Baloch family, where good daughters never say no to their parents. My father wanted me to get married, and all I said was, if that makes you happy, I'll say yes. And of course, it was never a happy marriage. Just about after 2 years of getting married, about 9 years ago, I met a car accident. Somehow my husband fell asleep and the car fell in the ditch. He managed to jump out, saved himself. I'm happy for him. But I stayed inside the car and I sustained a lot of injuries. The list is a bit long. Radius ulna of my right arm were fractured. The wrist was fractured. Shoulder bone and collarbone were fractured. My whole rib cage got fractured. But that injury that changed me and my life completely was the spine injury. Many people came to rescue. They gave me CPR. They dragged me out of the car. And while they were dragging me out, I got the complete transection of my spinal cord. Those 2.5 months in the hospital were dreadful. I was at the verge of despair. One day, doctor came to me and he said, well, I heard that you wanted to be an artist, but you ended up being a housewife. I have a bad news for you. You won't be able to paint again. Next day, doctor came to me and said, your spine injury is so bad, you won't be able to walk again. I took a deep breath and I said, it's all right. Next day, doctor came to me and said, because of your spine injury and the fixation that you have in your back, you won't be able to give birth to a child again. That day, I was devastated. I started to question my existence. Why am I even alive? So what kept me going was, one day I asked my brothers, I know I have a deformed hand, but I'm tired of looking at these white walls in the hospital and wearing these white scrubs. Bring me some colors, bring me some small canvas. I want to paint. So the very first painting I made was on my deathbed, where I painted for the very first time. What an amazing therapy it was. Without uttering a single word, I could paint my heart out. I could share my story. People used to come and say, what lovely painting. So much color. Nobody could see the grief in it. Only I could. And that day I decided that I'm going to live life for myself. I am not going to be that perfect person for someone. I am just going to take this moment and I will make it perfect for myself. That I'm going to fight my fears. So I wrote down one by one all those fears. And I decided that I'm going to overcome these fears one at a time. You know what was my biggest fear? Divorce. But the day I decided that this is nothing but my fear, I liberated myself by setting him free. And I made myself emotionally so strong that the day I got the news that he's getting married, I sent him a text that I'm so happy for you and I wish you all the best. And he knows that I pray for him today. Number 2 was, I won't be able to be a mother again. And that was quite devastating for me. But then I realized there are so many children in the world, all they want is acceptance. So there is no point of crying, just go and adopt one. And that's what I did. I gave my name in different organizations, different orphanages, and I waited patiently. 2 years later, I got this call from a very small city in Pakistan. I got a call and they said, are you Muniba Mazari? There is a baby boy and would you like to adopt? I could literally feel the labor pain. I said, yes, I am going to adopt him. I am coming to take him home. And that day, I was 2 days old, and today he's 6. You know, when you end up being on the wheelchair, what's the most painful thing? People think that they will not be accepted by the people because we, in the world of perfect people, are imperfects. So I decided to appear more in public. I started to paint. I have done a lot of modeling campaigns. I decided that I'm going to join the national TV of Pakistan as an anchor person. I became the National Goodwill Ambassador for UN Women Pakistan, and now I speak for the rights of women, children. I was featured in BBC 100 Women for 2015. I'm one of the Forbes 30 under 30 for 2016. So when you accept yourself the way you are, the world recognizes you. It all starts from within. We have this amazing fantasy about life. This is how things should work. This is my plan. It should go as per my plan. If that doesn't happen, we give up. I never wanted to be on the wheelchair. Never thought of being on the wheelchair. This life is a test and a trial, and tests are never supposed to be easy. So when you are expecting ease from life, and life gives you lemons, then you make the lemonade, and then do not blame life for that. It is okay to be scared. It is okay to cry. Everything is okay, but giving up should not be an option. They always say that failure is not an option. Failure should be an option, because when you fail, you get up, and then you fail, and then you get up, and that keeps you going. Embrace each and every breath that you are taking. Celebrate your life. Live it. Don't die before your death. Real happiness lies in gratitude. So be grateful, be alive, and live every moment.
was flunking out of college. I had a 1.7 grade point average. I hope none of you can relate. I had a 1.7 grade point average. I was sitting in my mother's beauty shop. They still call it beauty shops now? What they call it now? Yeah, I'll sit in the beauty parlor. I was sitting in my mother's beauty parlor, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I see behind me this woman under the dryer. And every time she looked up, every time I looked up, she was looking at me, just looking me in the eye. And I didn't know who she was, and I said, she said, somebody give me a pen, give me a pencil, I have a prophecy. March 27, 1975, she said, boy, you are gonna travel the world and speak to millions of people. Now mind you, I flunked out of college. I'm thinking about joining the army. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and she's telling me I'm gonna travel the world and speak to millions of people. Well, I have traveled the world, and I have spoke to millions of people. But that's not the most important thing, the success that I had. The most important thing is that what she taught me and what she told me that day has stayed with me since. I've been protected, I've been directed, I've been corrected. Fail big. That's right. Fail big. You only live once. So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances professionally. Don't be afraid to fail. There's an old IQ test, was 9 dots, and you had to draw 5 lines with a pencil within these 9 dots without lifting the pencil. The only way to do it was to go outside the box. So don't be afraid to go outside the box. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to fail big, to dream big. But remember, dreams without goals are just dreams, and they ultimately fuel disappointment. So have dreams, but have goals. Life goals, yearly goals, monthly goals, daily goals. I try to give myself a goal every day. And understand that to achieve these goals, you must apply discipline and consistency. You have to work at it every day. You have to plan every day. You've heard the saying, we don't plan to fail, we fail to plan. Hard work works. Working really hard is what successful people do. And in this text, tweet, twerk world that you've grown up in, remember, just because you're doing a lot more doesn't mean you're getting a lot more done. Remember that. Just because you're doing a lot more doesn't mean you're getting a lot more done. Don't confuse movement with progress. My mother told me, she said, yeah, because you can run in place all the time and never get anywhere. So continue to strive, continue to have goals, continue to progress. And anything you want good, you can have. So claim it. Work hard to get it. When you get it, reach back. Pull someone else up. Each one, teach one. Don't just aspire to make a living. Aspire to make a difference.